Hi, and welcome back to English Lessons with Stephanie. This is reading lesson number 8, New Year's Resolutions. Today we'll do a guided paragraph-by-paragraph reading. During this time, you can practice reading out loud by pausing the video and then listening when you're done. We will use the GASP method of guessing, answering questions, summarizing, and predicting. This will help you learn how to read faster. So remember, GASP means that we're going to guess. That means we're not going to look up every single word we don't understand. We just want to guess at the main ideas. At the end of each paragraph, we will answer questions that you might need to know before you move to the next paragraph. At the end of each paragraph, we'll summarize. That means tell a main idea of what happened. And then finally, you will predict what you will read in the next paragraph. That means you're going to think about what is going to come next, which will prepare you to understand it better. Okay, so I'm going to start with the first paragraph. If you want to practice reading out loud, just pause the video and then unpause the video to listen to how it sounds when I read it. I have always loved the tradition of making New Year's resolutions. These are the little goals we make for ourselves at the beginning of a new calendar year. This practice gives us an opportunity to think back on what went well during the previous year and to plan for what we hope to improve on in the year ahead. This first paragraph begins by talking about the tradition of making New Year's resolutions. See if you can guess what tradition means. And to guess, just pretend the word is not there and think about what word you would put in its place. If you're still not sure, ask yourself if you need to know the meaning of this word before moving on. If you remove the phrase, the tradition of, you just have the sentence, I have always loved making New Year's resolutions. And that kind of makes sense too. So it's not really important to know what this word means to understand this sentence. Just move on. Next, I just want to show you that we have the word beginning as a noun, right? Begin means the start of something. And here we have beginning in the noun form. In our third sentence, we have think back on. This is a phrasal verb. And I'm sure you can guess what it means. Since we have think followed by back is behind and back of us. Thinking back on means thinking about what happened before, in the past. Knowing what this means will help us to understand the word previous. Previous, if we're thinking back to the previous year, that means a previous year is a year that already happened. This is in contrast to the year ahead. The year ahead means the year that is going to happen next. So after this, now that we've reached the end of this short first paragraph, you should summarize this paragraph. What is the main idea of this? And then predict what you think we'll read about in the next paragraph. According to History.com, New Year's resolutions started as a religious practice in ancient Babylonia around 2000 BC. People made promises to the gods and believed that if they kept these promises, the gods would reward them with good fortune. Today, making New Year's resolutions is typically a secular practice, with promises made primarily to ourselves or perhaps our loved ones. We start this second paragraph by talking about a source, History.com. When we say according to, that means someone said this. If I say according to my friend, that means my friend said this. So History.com, of course, this is a website that talks about history. I'm showing you that this next piece of information comes from the website History.com. So History.com tells us that New Year's resolutions started as a religious practice. Most of you are probably familiar with the word religion. Your religion is your set of beliefs, your spiritual beliefs, what kind of God you believe in, or if you believe in a God at all. And religious is the adjective form of religion. So a religious practice. Here we have the word practice to mean some kind of ritual or action. So this is a religious action that started in ancient Babylonia. And people made promises to the gods. So we have promises in the sentence twice. So we make promises and then we keep these promises. So to guess what promise means, think about what we're talking about and how it's related to New Year's resolutions. So resolutions were promises that we made and promises that we kept. So these are things that we said we would do, right? Very similar to resolutions. We have the word reward, which is from class 1. And then we have the word secular. So I wrote a question here on the side. What does secular mean? If you were to guess what secular means, would you guess that it means non-religious or individual and alone? So how would we guess? Well, this sentence tells us that making New Year's resolutions is typically a secular practice, the way it is today, with promises. This sentence says, today, making New Year's resolutions is typically a secular practice, with promises made primarily to ourselves or perhaps our loved ones. So either of these two choices, A or B, could make sense. In the second half of the sentence, it says ourselves or our loved ones. Loved ones are people we love, like our family or friends. So maybe it's not really individual or alone. In the first sentence of the paragraph, it says that resolutions started out as religious practices. So this was many years ago, thousands of years ago. This was a religious thing. But today, New Year's resolutions are not really religious. They are non-religious. Then we have today. So these two sentences at the beginning and end of this paragraph show opposites. In the beginning, resolutions were religious, and today, resolutions are secular. So let's choose A as the meaning of secular. Now that we're at the end of this paragraph, let's summarize the main idea and predict what we will read about in the next paragraph. The most common New Year's resolutions are related to health. People resolve to lose weight, exercise more, or to quit smoking. Every January, gyms experience a sharp increase in new memberships, and gyms are more crowded than usual. Other common resolutions have to do with finances, usually saving money. Many people also make resolutions to improve their personal relationships by spending time with family members more regularly, seeing friends more often, or being kinder or more patient with their children. Other common resolutions may be career-related, like getting a better job, or about self-enrichment, reading more, learning another language. Before we talk about the vocabulary in this paragraph, let's answer these two questions. The first is, what is the main idea of this paragraph? Look for repeated words or ideas. One word that you see in this paragraph 3 times is the word common. And we also see the word resolutions 3 times in this paragraph. Common resolutions, common resolutions, common resolutions. Oh, actually, resolutions is in here 4 times. So this paragraph is about common resolutions. It's not just about health, it's not just about money, and it's not just about careers, but about how all 3 of these things are examples of common resolutions. Next, let's look at this question. There are 3 uses of parentheses. That's this type of punctuation. What is the purpose of these instances? Okay, so the first one here, it says every January, gyms experience a sharp increase in memberships. And here, like getting a better job. And here, reading more, learning another language. So ask yourself, so what is the purpose of this information in the parentheses? This first one that talks about gyms is giving us an example of how common it is for people to make New Year's resolutions relating to their health. In the second use of parentheses, we see an example of a career-related resolution. And in this third parenthetical use, we have 2 examples of self-enrichment. So we can see here that when we want to give examples, we often put them in parentheses. Okay, now let's talk about the vocabulary in this paragraph. First, we have health. I'm sure you know what health is. Health is about your body's condition. Next, we have an increase in new memberships. Now, if we look at the word memberships, we see the word member. Member is a person who belongs somewhere, a person who is allowed to go somewhere. Since we're talking about health, what do you think happens in January? Are there more new members or fewer new members? That's what will tell us what increase means. We also have the word crowded. That's a class 4 vocabulary word. And then we have the word finances. And finances, we can guess, has to do with money, because after we say finances, it talks about money. And next, we have resolutions about personal relationships. You might recognize the word relationships and think that personal relationships kind of mean the same thing. We have person in the word personal, that's our adjective form of person. And you might say, aren't all relationships personal? But no, relationships can be the connection between things, a connection between businesses, a connection between plants or animals. It's just a type of connection. So personal relationships are the connections we have with other people. Next, we have the word patient. In this sentence, we're talking about how we treat children. We want to be kinder or more patient. So patient is some kind of adjective that describes how we should behave with children. Then we have the word career, career related, and then the example of getting a job. So we can guess here that careers and jobs are closely related. And finally, we have the term self-enrichment, and the examples given are reading more and learning another language. So we can guess that self-enrichment has to do with making ourselves smarter or learning more. In this word enrichment, you can see the word rich, right? Which means to have more of something. Now that we're at the end of this paragraph, take a minute to summarize the main idea and then predict what we will read about in the next paragraph. Behavior experts often say that the key to achieving our resolutions is to make goals that are specific. Instead of resolving to exercise more, it's more helpful to be more focused, like go to the gym 3 times a week or walk 2 miles every morning. Another strategy is to create a specific plan with smaller goals to help ourselves achieve the larger goal. For example, if our goal is to quit smoking, we should set up smaller goals with dates that will lead us to that goal, like cutting down on the number of cigarettes we smoke gradually. We start this paragraph with behavior experts saying things. So behavior, this is how we act. And an expert is a person who knows a lot about something. So behavior experts are people who know a lot about behavior, how we act. Let's look at the word key. So when you think of a key, you might think of the tool we use to open a door. And this is related to it, but we're not talking about doors, but we are talking about accomplishing something, achieving our resolutions, which means keeping our promises that we have made. We end with the word specific, and then we have examples of how to be specific. Instead of resolving to exercise more, it's better to be more focused, like go to the gym 3 times a week or walk 2 miles every morning. So this should help to tell you what specific means, right? We're going from one general idea, like exercise more, to focused specific ideas, like go to the gym or walk 2 miles. Next, we have the word strategy. And before the word strategy, we have the word another. This tells us that this is the second time we're talking about a strategy. So before this, we've also talked about strategies. So we can guess that strategy is some way to accomplish something. In the beginning of this paragraph, we talk about how we need to achieve our goals by being specific. And here we have another strategy. So this is another way to achieve our goals, and that is by creating a specific plan. Finally, we have the phrase cutting down on. So in this sentence, if our goal is to quit smoking, we can set up smaller goals with dates that will lead us to that goal, like cutting down on the number of cigarettes we smoke gradually. So you can guess what cutting down on means. Because of the particle down, right, we're reducing. That means we are decreasing or using less of something. So that means smoking fewer and fewer cigarettes gradually, a little bit at a time. Let's pause at the end of this paragraph to summarize it and to guess what we'll read about in the next paragraph. A third technique to help stick to our goals is to team up with others who are interested in the same thing. We're more likely to follow through with our resolutions if we have friends to support us. So, if we're trying to save money, It helps to find friends who are also interested in saving money. Finally, we have to make resolutions that are realistic. If we make resolutions that are too hard to achieve, we set ourselves up for failure. Let's ask ourselves, what is the meaning of technique? So before the word technique, we have the word third. That means we've talked about this idea of technique 2 times before this. What did we just talk about? We talked about strategy. Strategy had the word another in front of it. And we said that a strategy was a plan to help achieve our goals. So here we can guess that technique is something similar. Is it a way of doing something, or is it a problem? It is a way of doing something. So another way of doing something that will help us stick to our goals, to accomplish our goals, is to team up with others. Now, team up is a phrasal verb that means to form a team, to put people together. We're more likely to follow through with our resolutions. In class 6, we learned the phrasal verb follow up, which meant to check on something to make sure it happens. And follow through means something similar, but it doesn't mean to check on something. It means to continue until something has been achieved. So here we can see that we want to follow through with our resolutions. That has another positive meaning about trying to finish something, to follow it and create more action. We have support, a previous vocabulary word from class 3. And then we also have the word realistic. If we look at the word realistic, you can recognize the word real inside it. So realistic is another adjective related to the word real. In the last sentence, we talk about what would happen if we make resolutions that are too hard to achieve. Well, what would happen? We set ourselves up for failure. And you can guess what this means, right? What's the opposite of achieving something? Well, that would be failure. That means not achieving something, not succeeding. And set ourselves up. We also had the phrasal verb set up in a previous class, which means to make something. So you can guess what this last sentence means. So let's summarize what we read in this paragraph and predict what we will read about in our next and last paragraph. My most successful resolution was to get in shape by walking more. I resolved to get 10,000 steps a day. This was very specific and achievable because I was already averaging around 8,000 steps during the week and 10,000 on the weekends, so getting that little bit extra during the week wasn't a big deal. My least successful resolutions have been about my writing. For years, I've wanted to publish a novel, but my resolutions have rarely led to me completing a novel, let alone publishing one. I've tried to break down that large goal into smaller goals, write an hour a day, write short stories, etc. But so far I've yet to reach this goal. But I haven't given up yet. As long as there are New Year's, I will continue to make my New Year's resolutions. In this last paragraph, we start by talking about a personal experience with resolutions. So here I talk about my most successful resolution, and that was to get in shape. You can guess what get in shape means because I'm getting in shape by walking more. So what would walking more accomplish? Well, getting healthy, which is similar to getting in shape. Next, we have some numbers. I talk about wanting to get 10,000 steps a day and how this was achievable because I was already averaging 8,000 steps during the week and 10,000 on the weekends. So take a guess in your mind what you think averaging means. Then I say I need to get a little bit extra during the week. You can guess what extra means. What word could you put here to mean the same thing? And then let's ask ourselves, what does a big deal mean? We've seen this phrase before in some other readings. It's a very common expression. So do you think it means a problem or an advantage? So put these two words in place of a big deal and see which makes more sense. Does it make sense to say that getting a little bit extra during the week wasn't a problem, or getting a little bit extra during the week wasn't an advantage? I think problem makes more sense. Next, we have the verb led. This is the past tense of lead. So these resolutions did not lead to me to complete a novel. And then I tried to break down the large goal into smaller ones. So maybe you know what this verb break means. Break means you're taking something apart, or you are making it not work anymore, and then down. So you can guess that this phrasal verb means to take something larger and to take it apart into smaller things. We also see a phrasal verb give up that we learned in class 7, which means to stop trying. So it says, I haven't stopped trying. As long as there are New Year's, I will continue to make my New Year's resolutions. So you can guess what you think this last phrase is, as long as. So we've reached the end of our reading passage. And your next step here is to summarize what you've read, the entire reading, then to go back and review any parts you are still confused about, look up words in a dictionary. And here too, I'd like you to go back and look at the reading for uses of comparisons. We learned about comparisons in our grammar class this week, and in this reading passage, there are many uses of comparisons. So this would be a great opportunity for you to look back and see how the comparisons are used in this reading. Finally, continue with this week's writing and speaking lessons. In the writing lesson, we'll talk about all these vocabulary words a little bit more and how to use them properly when writing. And in our speaking lesson, we'll talk about some of the topics we learned about today. Thanks for joining us and great work, and see you next time.